Fellow Kenyans, it is a day that we want to bring to you a story, very touching story that captures a land dispute with one Richard Oindo Chan, a man of Kisumu County, Nyakach Sub-County, Lower Nyakach Division, Papunditi location, Olembo sub-location. This guy comes from Karabur village of Kasiri clan. Richard Oindo have suffered a land dispute for almost 14 years. When the time came that he was now to enjoy the works of his sweat, the dispute erupted.
Thank you very much for the day today, and I'll start introducing to you this matter, the background, and how this crisis began. I lawfully purchased land through a valid land sale agreement supported by succession proceedings concluded in 2019. Certificate of confirmation of grant, lawful transfer and registration, insurance of title deeds. Under Kenyan law, once title is issued, ownership becomes absolute and indivisible, protected by Article 40 of the Constitution and Sections 24, 25, 26 of the Land Registration Act, nemo that quote, non habet, no one can give what they do not have. Despite this, what should have been a simple land dispute was wrongfully dragged back into succession. Years after succession had legally ended. I'm speaking today to place on public record serious violations of constitutional and human rights, and to ask for accountability under the law. First, arson and displacement. My homestead was deliberately burned. As a result, my family was displaced, rendered houseless, and exposed to ongoing threats and trauma. This was not an accident. It followed intimidation, trespass, and coordinated actions that remain unsolved. These acts violate Article 40 of the Protection of Property, Article 29 on security of the person, and Article 43 of the right to housing. Second, threats, robbery with violence, and malicious damage. I have subjected to threats and robbery with violence, including an incident recorded at OB number 39 of 13th June 2025, and a related active matter before Winam Court, Court File number 821/205/2/2025. There were also malicious damages to trees and utilities. These acts violate Article 28 and 29 of the Constitution and offend the Penal Code provision on robbery, threats, and malicious damage. Third, illegal burial of eldest son, Eric Mwemba Oindo. My son died at a swimming pool hotel in Mwatate constituency after eating food. He was buried without a post-mortem, without a lawful information to me as his father, and without my consent. Funeral contributions were publicly stopped, despite a supporting letter issued to me by the area chief, Papunditi location, Mr. Charles Utino Ogola, to enable lawful final arrangements. I was directly told that the burial will be blocked and that false public announcements will be made. This violated Article 26 on the right of life, Article 28 on dignity, Article 47 of fair administrative action, and basic requirements of public health and criminal procedure. Fourth, abuse of office and interference with justice. There were public announcements and administrative actions that obstructed lawful burial, discouraged assistance and spread misinformation about my family. I was even told that a death certificate existed against me. These actions undermine Article 10 values of rule of law and accountability and Article 48 on access to justice. Fifth, land grabbing and flawed court processes. I lawfully purchased land from Perez Adhiambo Oindo, supported by chief's letters, affidavits, will, gazettement, receipts, transfers, and title deeds. These titles were issued and later transferred to me as absolute honor. Despite this, a flawed judgment in succession case number 420 of 2018, followed by irregular consents, was used to create succession case number 355 of 2023 within the same file to my disadvantage. This offends Article 40 and 50, the Law of Succession Act, and settlement principles against litigation and abuse of process. Sixth, electronic evidence and records. I have video speaking records, affidavits from my vendor, chief's letters, and official searches. These are compliant with Section 78A and 106B of the Evidence Act. The truth is documented. My position is simple and lawful. Stop the violence and intimidation. 2. Protect my family. 3. Respect valid titles and court process. 4. Order accountability for arson, robbery, threats, and malicious damage. 5. Address illegal burial through lawful inquiry and remedy. As a maxim states, ubi jus ibi remedium. Where there is a right, there must be a remedy. And nemo judex is cassatiua. No one should be a judge in their own case. I call upon the Attorney General, the Inspector General of Police, the Director of Public Prosecutions, and all oversight institutions to act. I ask the public to listen carefully and support the rule of law. This is not politics. This is law, dignity, and justice. As I had told you about my names, my name is Richard Oindo Chan, a Kenyan citizen, a father, and a lawful property owner. I speak today to place on public record systemic violations of constitutional rights, criminal justice failures, and abuse of public authority. Matters that concern not only my family, but the integrity of the rule of law. First, arson and criminal accountability. On 23rd November 2022, an arson attack was reported under OB number 12 of 23rd November 2022. The matter was placed before Nyando Law Court, where 15 suspects were initially implicated. However, through flawed proceedings, the case was reduced to one accused person, namely Gordon Ochieng Oguta. Despite evidence and active warrants, the case culminated into judgment delivered on a mentioned date, 10th December 2025, a procedural irregularity that offends the right to fair trial under Article 50 of the Constitution. Second, destruction of my house, homestead, and judicial nullification of ownership. The house was burned, my family home, lawfully built and occupied. Yet in a criminal judgment on 10th, the court ruled without lawful evidentiary foundation that the house belonged to my late grandmother and vendor from 1969, thereby extinguishing my property rights without due process. This violated Article 40 of Protection of Property and a doctrine of indefeasibility of title. Third, pattern of flawed judgment and consents. On 21st October 2025, a separate flawed judgment was issued, grounded on irregular consents dated 9th March 2021 and 30th August 2021, to which I was neither a party nor consenting participant. Such orders offended the maxim, quod ab initio not valet, intractu temporis non conversile sit. What is void from the beginning cannot be cured by the time. Fourth, illegal meeting and incitement. On 12th December 2021, an illegal meeting was convened at the Olemo Sub-Location Assistant Chief's Office, recorded under OB number 13, involving approximately 20 participants without lawful mandate. A further meeting on 9th June 2024, attended by 51 persons, who was chaired by the same assistant chief, during which threats against my life were issued. This act contravenes Article 29 and 33 and amount to criminal incitement under penal code. Fifth, trespass and infrastructure abuse. The Kenya Power and Lighting Company, KPLC, through private actors, installed heavy-duty high-voltage power lines across my homestead without consent, waiver, or compensation. In violation of Trespass Act, Cap 294, Article 40, Clause 3, and established land acquisition jurisprudence. 6. Land grabbing and abuse of military status. My land parcel number 2518 Kisumu Kabodo East was forcibly occupied by Freddy Odhiambo Willi, an Air Force officer, without any lawful transfer. Parcel number 1489 was similarly interfered with through Kisumu Magistrate Court, relying on a purported reconstruction orders dated 8th of July 2019 and 28th November 2022, issued before any valid application and after my title deeds already existed. This violates the sanctity of land registers and the principle in Rec Motors Enterprises versus the Commissioner of Lands. 7. Due process and international standards. Collectively, these actions violate Article 10, Article 28, 29, 40, 47, 48, and 50 of the Constitution of Kenya, the African Charter on Human Rights and People's Rights, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR, the UN Basic Principle on Independence of Judiciary. The applicable maxis are clear. Fiat justitia ruat calam. Let justice be done through the heavens fall, or the alteram pattern. No person shall condemn unheard. My call is simple and lawful. Independent review of flawed criminal and succession proceedings. Stock land. Accountability for arson, threats, trespass, and land grabbing. Restoration and protection of lawful property rights. Enforcement of constitutional safeguards without fear or favor. This is not a personal vendetta. It is a test of rule of law. Justice delayed, distorted, or denied threat to every citizen. This is a presidential and global audience, rule of law focus. My dear President and His Excellency of the Republic of Kenya, my name is Richard Oindo Chan, a Kenyan citizen and lawful landowner. I'm speaking to report grave violation of constitutional rights, criminal justice failures, and abuse of public authority that demand urgent independent review. On 23rd November 2022, an arson attack was reported under OB number 12 of 23rd November 2022 at Nyando Law Court. 15 suspects were initially implicated through procedural flawed proceedings. The case was reduced to one accused, and judgment was delivered on a mentioned date, 10th December 2025. This contravenes Article 50 of the Constitution and International Fair Trial Standards. My family home, lawfully owned and occupied, was destroyed, yet the court ruled, without lawful evidentiary basis, that the house belonged to my grandmother from 1969, thereby extinguishing my property rights. This violates Article 40 and the doctrine of indivisibility of title. Further, Mr. President, irregular consents dated 9th of March 2021 and 30th August 2021, to which I was not a party, were relied upon in fraud judgment of 21st October 2025. What is void from the start cannot be cured by the time. There were illegal meetings convened by the local administrator, area assistant chief, on 12th December 2021 and the entire office, and 9th June 2024, where threats were issued. Such acts breach Article 29 and 33 and amount to criminal incitement. My land was also trespassed, grabbed. High voltage power lines were installed across my homestead without consent or compensation. Contrary to the Trespass Act and Article 40 Clause 3, parcel number 2518 was forcibly occupied by an Air Force officer without lawful transfer. Parcel number 1489 was interfered with using purported reconstruction orders dated 8 July 2019 and 28 November 2022. issued before valid application and after my titles already existed. These actions, Mr. President, violates Article 10, 28, 29, 40, 47, 48, and 50 of Kenya's Constitution, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and the ICCPR. Mr. President, my call is lawful and clear. Independent review, accountability, restoration of property rights, and protection of my family. Mr. President, justice must not be only done, it must be seen done. List of authorities and citations for the facts. The Kenya Constitutional Statutes, Constitution of Kenya 2010, Article 10, 28, 29, 40, 47, 48, and 50. Evidence Act, Cap 50 as subsection 78A 106B. Penal Code, Cap 63, robbery, threats, malicious damage, incitement. Trespass Act, Cap 294. Land Registration Act, Doctrine of Indivisibility, Kenya law, Kenya case law. Rectors Motors Enterprises versus Commission of Lands, sanctity of title. Fair trial of jurisprudence under Article 50, Kenya Superior Courts. International and Region, ICCPR, Article 2, 14, and 17. African Charter on Human and People's Rights, Article 4, 6, and 14. UN Basic Principles of the Independence of Judiciary, Legal Maxims. Audio alteram patent. Hear the other side. Ubi jus ibi remedium. Where there is a right, there is a remedy. Fiat justitia that calam. Let justice be done, though the heavens fall. Allow me to proceed with the scriptures on the warrant and mention date, judgment, displacement, and the rights violations. My name is Richard Oindo Chan, a Kenyan citizen and lawful owner. I address the nation and the international community to report grave violations of constitutional, human, and the property rights arising from arson, threats, robbery with violence, abuse of administrative authority, and fraud court proceedings. On 23rd November 2022, an arson attack against my homestead was formally reported on OB number stated below. The matter proceeded before Nyando Law Court, where 15 suspects were initially implicated. Active warrants of arrest remained in force. However, no arrests were affected, and the case was irregularly concluded by judgment delivered on a mentioned date, 10th October 2025, against the rule of law. While the warrant was still active, this alone offends Article 50 of the Constitution and the International Fair Trial Standards. That judgment rendered my house, homestead, and all private properties as belonging to my deceased vendor and biological grandmother, Perez Adhiambo Oindo, despite my valid titles and occupation. I was thereby declared a stranger to my own home. As a result, I am now homeless, propertyless, homesteadless, and displaced, contrary to Article 28, 40, and 43 of the Constitution. The destruction was not theoretical. My family house was burnt, household property destroyed, trees maliciously damaged, and I was chased away from my home on the very day of the attack. I personally reported the incident at Paponiti Police Station and was accompanied back by 10 armed police officers. Despite this official response, the judgment later falsely stated that I was not at home and only heard the events from my biological father. That finding is factually false and on record contradicted by police presence. Further, local administrator, recently employed by the government of Kenya, chaired meetings purporting to offer protection, while in reality enabling intimidation. During this period, I was threatened with pangas and machetes, subjected to robbery with violence, and suffered malicious destruction of trees and household property. These actions violates Article 29 and 33 and amount to criminal conduct under the Penal Code. The cumulative effect is forced displacement and silencing my freedom of expression and ability to seek help were curtailed through intimidation and misinformation. This breaches Article 33 47, and 48 of the Constitution and international guarantees under the ICCPR and the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. The governing principles are settled. Audio alteram pattern. No one should be condemned and hurt. Ubi justice jus ibi rebellion. Where there is a right, there must be a remedy. Fiat justitia riat calam. Let justice be done, though the heavens fall. My call is lawful and urgent. Independent review of mentioned date, judgment delivered under active warrants, accountability for arson and threats, restoration of property rights, and protection of my family. This is not personal. It is a test of constitutionalism, due process, and human dignity. Constitution of Kenya 2010, Article 10, 28, 29, 33, 40, 43, 47, 48, and 50. Penal Code 63, Cap. Arson, robbery with violence, threats, malicious damage. Trespass Act 294. ICCPR, African Charter on Human People's Rights. Fair trial standard prohibiting judgments on mentioned dates while warrants remain active. My name is Richard Oindo Chan, a Kenyan citizen and a lawful landowner. I am speaking out against the serious violation of constitutional and human rights that have left my family displaced, houseless, and without protection of law. On 23rd November 2022, my homestead was burned down into arson attack, reported on the OB at Nyandoloko. Suspects were initially implicated, and active warrants of arrest remained in force. Shockingly, no arrests were made, and the case was concluded through judgment delivered on a mentioned date, 10th October 2025, while warrants were still active. This violates the right of fair trial under Article 50. Local administrators chaired meetings claiming to offer protection while intimidation continued. My freedom of expression, security, and access to justice were undermined. These actions violate the Constitution of Kenya, the African Charter on Human People's Rights, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. My appeal is simple: independent review, accountability for arson and threats, restoration of property rights, and protection of my family. Justice must be done, and it must be seen done. Your Excellencies and Honorable Officers in the Republic of Kenya, I am Richard Oindo Chan, respectfully seeking urgent intervention regarding systemic violations of constitutional and human rights arising from arson, threats, robbery with violence, and administrative abuse, and procedurally flawed court outcomes. On 23rd November 2022, my homestead was destroyed by arson, OB number 12, before Nyando Law Courts. 15 suspects were implicated and warrants of arrest remained active. Nonetheless, the matter concluded through a judgment delivered on a mentioned date, 10th October 2025, while the warrant was still in force, undermining Article 50 and basic fair trial guarantees. That judgment extinguished my proprietary rights by declaring my home and properties to belong to my deceased grandmother/vendor, despite valid titles and occupation, leaving my family homeless, houseless, and displaced, contrary to Article 28, 40, and 43. The record further contains a factual misstatement that I was absent during the incident, despite same-day police reporting and attendance with armed officers. Currently, local officers' actions purportedly offering protection coincided with intimidation, threats, and suppression of expression, infringing Article 29, 33, 47, and 48. Additional violations include trespass and uncompensated utility installation and alleged land grabbing on RA 2518 and 1489. In light of Kenyans' obligation under the Constitution, the ICCPR and the African Charter, I respectfully request independent review of the mentioned date, judgment delivered under active warrants, accountability for arson, threats, robbery, malicious damage, and trespass, restoration and protection of lawful property rights, immediate protective measures for my family. I remain available to provide certified records, police OBs, titles, and electronic video evidence. My humble prayers. I humbly reach out to you as a fellow Kenyan and a father seeking compassion and support during an extremely difficult time in my life. My name is Richard Oindo Chan, My family and I have suffered severe hardship following the destruction of our homestead by arson, threats to our lives, robbery with violence, and prolonged legal and administrative challenges. As a result, we have been forcibly displaced, rendered houseless and propertyless, and continue to ensure emotional, physical, and financial distress. In addition, my family has been deeply affected by loss of my eldest son, whose death and burial occurred under circumstances that denied us dignity, participation, and closure. These compounded events have left my household struggling to meet basic needs such as shelter, food, medical care, school support for dependents, and legal access to justice. I respectfully and humbly appeal to well-wishers of goodwill for any form of assistance you may be able to offer, including temporary shelter or housing support, food and basic household necessities, medical and psychological support, educational support for dependents, legal or humanitarian assistance, any financial contribution, however small. Any help extended will go a long way towards restoring dignity, stability, and hope to my family during this period of recovery and pursuit of justice. I remain gratefully for your time, compassion, and solidarity. May God bless you for standing with the family in need.
Bwana Richard, why are you asking for national intervention?
Yes, my answer is because the constitutional rights have been violated despite valid court orders and registered titles. National institutions exist to intervene when local enforcement fails. Ubi jus, ibi remedia.
And is this a family inheritance matter or what?
No. This succession concluded in 2019. I am a purchaser for value with registered title. What remains is a land dispute compounded by criminal conduct, arson, trespass, threats, not probate.
Okay. Now, as you say that your rights have been violated, if I may ask, which laws were violated?
The laws violated were Article 28, 29, 40, 47, 48, and 53 of the Constitution, the Land Registration Act, security of title, criminal law prohibiting arson, robbery with violence, threats, and obstruction of justice.
Do you have evidence to rely on this?
Yes, I have the court-confirmed succession records, title deeds, transfer consents, affidavits, official letters, and video recorded statement already on record by my vendor, Perez Adhiambo.
Okay. And what immediate remedies do you seek?
I hereby do seek enforcement of status quo orders, police protection, prosecution of offenders, restoration of possession, compensation for losses, and safeguarding of minors, nemo health superior.
What outcome are you seeking?
The outcome I'm seeking for is to existing court orders, restoration of my homestead, accountability for criminal acts, and institutional protection for my family, in-laws, nemo es supra legem, no one is above the rule of law.
Nemo es supra legem. Where did you learn this? Are you a lawyer?
This is, okay. I'm an engineer by profession, and I did my diploma in mechanical engineering, and in that diploma, we cover some laws, the principle and laws, whereby if you want to be a fully professional worker in that category, you must be ethically fit, you must be locally fit, you must be physically fit and mathematically fit. So all this, when they are compressed together, we find we come with what is called the maxim. So maxim are these terminologies. They are the principle in short words, in law form. Wow. So when you call the nemo health supply again, in other words, no one is above the rule of law.
Okay. Mr. Richard, in your story, as I have listened to you, you mentioned the name of the president. What appeal would you want, or what help would you want the president to do?
Okay, I stand to appeal and respectfully petition this my prayers to the president seeking immediate enforcement of court orders, preserving the status quo, protecting of my family and witnesses, investigating and prosecution of arson, robbery with violence, trespass, threats to life, and obstruction of justice, and restoration of my homestead and house, and quiet possession of a lawful acquired land. The Constitution of Kenya guarantees the right to property under Article 40, human dignity under Article 28, security of a person under Article 29, fair administrative action under Article 47, access to justice under Article 48, and the best interest of the child under Article 53. These guarantees are not aspirable as personal, they are binding. Where lawful ownership is defeated by violence and intimidation, the Republic itself is imperiled. As the maxim holds, fiat justitia ruat calam. Let justice be done, though the heavens fall. I ask the state to act decisively to vindicate the rule of law and also assist me in rehabilitation of my house, which was assaulted illegally by the illegal actors.
Fellow viewers, it is a very sad and interesting story from one Richard Oindo. Judgment of the judgment we are leaving unto you, and we are calling upon well-wishers to come forward and extend a hand on how these gentlemen may be redeemed from the sufferings he is undergoing. Mr. Richard, following what you have gone through, a lot of trauma, as I can get it from your voice, what message would you probably have for the public?
My message to the public is justice must be determined by law, not fair. When citizens obey the law and courts issue orders, the state must enforce them.
Wow, the state must enforce them, so you say. As we carry on, if I may ask you, Mr. Richard, what is the co-injustice in this case?
Yes, my answer is unlawful dispossession and arson enforced by administrative overreach, contrary to Article 40 and 47 of the Constitution.
And why is the constitutional?
Because life, dignity, property, speech, and fair hearing are non-negotiable rights under the Bill of Rights.
And how comes you could not resolve this locally?
Local administrative actions were ultra vires. Land disputes belong to ELC, Audio Alteram Patent.
Audio Alteram Patent. Are you speaking in tongue?
No, this is, as I told you, under Maxis. We have the authorities regarding the law and the speeches, mostly special as such. We normally apply injunctions, combinations, they are part of the English.
And to that regard, now what do you want?
Protection. I request His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya, the Chief of the Commander of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Dr. Honorable William Samoei Arap Ruto, for the protection, enforcement, prosecution, restoration, and any assistance. Right now I'm jobless, I don't work anywhere, I'm suffering under the rule of law, not favors.
So many Kenyans are suffering the same. What would you tell, or what message would you have to Kenyans?
In regard to the basic needs, no Kenyans must fail to have a basic. So the citizens should be the citizens should be houseless or silenced by unlawful power, salus populi, supreme lex osto. Meaning, nobody should be suffering from lack of the house. They should be having their house. They should not be houseless. So, salus populi, supreme lex osto. That's the meaning, in other words.
Mr. Richard, you've told a lot of stories. Why have you decided, or why did you decide to go public?
Because the Constitution guarantees freedom of expression and access to justice. Public accountability is democratic safeguard. When lawful processes are undermined, silence will amount to acquiescence in justice.
Allow me to ask you again, is this a family inheritance dispute?
No. Succession concluded in 2019. I'm a purchaser for value with registered title. What remains is a land dispute aggravated by criminal acts, arson, trespass, and intimidation, which fall under the land law and criminal law, not probate jurisdiction.
You've accused constitutional violation. What constitutional violations do you allege, if you may come again to this question?
In short, as I said earlier, Articles 28 in my readings, Article 29 in my readings, as well as 40, 47, and 48, so 53 on the best interest of the child of the Constitution of Kenya. Collectively, this protects dignity, security, property, due process, access to justice, and Children's Act.
And do you have evidence to these claims?
Yes, I have the evidence of this because I have the title deeds, I have the confirmation of grants, I have the chief's letters, I have the transfer letters, I have the RL 39 at land registry, I have the RL 42 at land registry making me to be the absolute owner. I have all the credentials required by a person to own a stroke video recording, speaking, which was spoken by the vendor to me officially to end the classes and disputes.
Well, you have given a lot of stories and it is quite touching, Mr. Richard. But what status do you have?
Right now, I stand before the podium. Land Registration Act 2012, Section 24, 25, 26, Indivisibility of Title, 2, Environmental and Land Court Act, Jurisdiction over Land Dispute, 3, Trespass Act, Cap 294, Unlawful Entry and Occupation, 5, Penal Code Cap 63, Arson, Robbery with Violence, Threats to Kill, Fair Administrative Action Act 2015, National Police Service Act, Duty to Protect Life and Property. C, Leading Case Law in Kenya, Dr. Joseph Arap Ngok versus Justice Moijo Ole Kioa and others. Title is absolute unless acquired fraudulently and proved. Me to Bail Welfare Society versus Kenya Airports Authority, Supreme Court. Forced evictions without due process are unconstitutional. 3, Isaac Gachungu Wanjoi versus Attorney General. Administrative actions must be lawful, reasonable, and procedurally fair. 4, R versus Karisa Chengo and others. Jurisdiction cannot be assumed by convenience. 5, Peter Ochieng versus Republic. Failure to enforce warrants undermines justice. 6, Samuel Kamau Macharia versus KCB. Courts and administrators act only within the constitutional mandate. D, Latin Maxis applied. Nemondat Kut Nonahbet. Audio alteram patem, ultravirus, fiat justitia ruat calam, salus populis suprem exesto, ubi jus ibi remedium. Reliefs, pleas, and national call to action. I therefore petition the Republic of Kenya, the Excellency, and the entire government, procedurally, executive, judiciary, and legislature for immediate protection for myself and minor children, witness protection and police security, enforcement of court orders, warrants and titles, investigation and prosecution of arson, illegal land sale, threats and administrative abuse, restoration of quiet possession of my homestead, nullification of all administrative letters and meetings purported to evict me by Mr. Dan Matthew Angela, the Area Assistant Chief, Olembo Sub-Location dated 6th of February 2024, and illegal land sale by the Air Force officer, Mr. Frederick Odhiambo Owili, who threatened to kill me when I asked of the same, to quit and lease my land, 2518, on record with my title deed. Recognition of my residence and citizens' rights in Olembo Sub-Location, Papunditi Location in Nyakach, and also to rehabilitate in request my house as a basic for the purpose of the miners, because it is rainy season and my children should be having their house. So I don't have a house and I request for the house construction. Institutional accountability to reaffirm that Kenya is a constitutional democracy, not a despotic order. I speak not in hatred, but in constitutional fidelity. I seek not privilege, but equal protection of law. The constitutional promised dignity, security, and justice to every Kenyan. I now demand that promise be honored. Thank you.
Ubi jus ibi remediam. Thank you, fellow Kenyans. That was the story of Richard Oindo, a story that is quite touching. We call upon you to listen carefully onto it. Kindly, if you have a way we can support this gentleman to at least reclaim his land, have a shelter for his family, then that will be the best thing you will have done. Put a smile on his face. God bless you. Until we meet again next time with another story. This was Custodians of Africa.